970 WGTK. 970 WGTK gives you Let's Talk with Dr. Stan Frager. From relationship problems to family feuds, he's got all the advice and expert help you'll need. Now, here's Dr. Stan Frager.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm psychologist Stan Frager, and every Sunday night, this is our special time together. I'm glad you're with us. It's really nice. We have a good friend joining our Sunday night family tonight, Dr. Eli Karam, and he's been a longtime friend of ours since the early days. Coming up, by the way, first Sunday in March. We know about the first Saturday in March. First Sunday in March will make 5 years we've been together on Sunday nights, and I appreciate those who are with us. You know, we're going to give away a lot of stuff tonight, by the way, for those who call in. You can always check us out on Facebook, and we do all kinds of things, tweet and blogging, and we got our guy John Brody's in there just working away. So hang in there, go to Facebook, check out Stan Frager Show. And while we're talking about that, the guest we have, Dr. Eli Karam, is an assistant professor in the Marriage Family Therapy program at our University of Louisville's great Kent School of Social Work that I am an alumnus faculty member of. And Dr. Karam is a current faculty member of. He's president of the Kentucky Association for Marriage and Family Therapy. You can also find him on his webpage, elikaram.com, Twitter at Dr. Eli Live. And by the way, all that information is on our website. If you go to Frager.com, and it's all there. Just click on the radio show. And tips from Tony and Dr. Stan. Tony Safina is Ace Media researcher, and he puts stuff up every week about our wonderful guests that we have with us. And so just check it out. Go to Frager.com, click on Tips from Tony and Dr. Stan. And we thank Tony Safina for that. And all the information about how to reach Dr. Karam and what we talk about is on there. Dr. Karam, one of the things we wanted to talk about tonight is emerging adulthood. And that's a term that's kind of new. We haven't heard that in a long time. Many religions have emerging adulthood. In Judaism, you turn 13, you're bar mitzvah, you're considered an adult. I mean, they have ceremonies. There's confirmation in many Protestant Catholic religions.
Right. Well, first of all, it's good to see you, Stan, and first visit of the calendar year here at the Sunday Night Family, and yeah, emerging adulthood tonight. So listeners out there, you want to listen and call in, and the way we're defining that is ages 18 to 25, where, you know, it used to be believed that if you could get your child launched around age 18, your parental job had been done. We know that's not the case now for some factors we'll talk about this hour, but this period is also known as kind of young adulthood, or the period after launching, where we find both developmentally, individually, and kind of on the family life cycle. As a family therapist, we look at things that fall, these normal shifts, these challenges, these obstacles that every family, every individual face. And there's a bunch of those kind of roadblocks or constraints in this period of emerging adulthood we'll talk about tonight.
Well, and by the way, our second hour, Dr. Karam's going to stay with us, and we have a guest joining us, and it's called Redate Your Mate. So if you've got a marriage or relationship that's in trouble, we're going to tell you how to fix it. And that all happens our second hour. In fact, in 1 hour, we save marriages and relationships and partnerships and whatever. So this first hour, it's about emerging adulthood. And again, for people who call in, 5710970, if you've got a challenge, or what was it like for you when you were in some of those ages, 18, 21, 25, what was that like for you in terms of what were your struggles, what were your challenges?
We do appreciate your calls. I'm also curious if you are a parent out there, or even a grandparent that has a child or a grandchild in this age range, 18 to 25. What are you facing with? Because there are many times parents, they're great parents for their kids when they're young, they're primary school age and even into adolescence. But when we get to this gray area, oh, my child is supposed to be self-sufficient, but they're not quite. Sometimes it makes parents, Dr. Stan, feel like failures, like they're not doing enough. But really, as we know, there are some good tips and tools and some developmental strategies, both for the individual and the family, that we can employ. So if you're out there as a parent or a grandparent and you want to call in, we would really appreciate that.
Okay, Dr. Karam, I get the first prize. I didn't call, but I was going to run outside, call back. My son is 28, Alfred Joshua. My daughter is 30. I keep telling him I need him off the payroll.
Yes.
Does this ever happen?
Yes.
Does it really happen? They become independent. Now, my son's about to graduate, get his doctorate from St. Louis University, coming up here in June, the Lord willing. And it's like it never ends.
Yes. And you bring up the number one thing parents sometimes get confused and mixed emotions around as far as financial support. We can talk about emotional support and how much of that should you give to your emerging adult, but the idea of financial support is very important. Now, one thing and the scholar in this area, his name is Jeffrey Arnett. He's done, a psychologist, done the most research. And when you think about proper ways to support your emerging adult, financially is obviously one of them. And I think obviously the big factor is, where is that money going for? How accountable is the emerging adult? Are they using it to float their lifestyle? Meaning, are they moving towards it, or are they using it for specific purposes, like education?
That's it. 571, in fairness to them, by the way, they've been doing pretty great on their own. I don't want to hear from them when I get home and say, Dad, what are you saying? 571-0970. We're here for you, Dr. Eli Karam. I'm Stan Frager. 571-0970. Be right back.
You found Let's Talk with Dr. Stan Frager. Dr. Stan Frager is standing by to give you insight on issues that matter most to you. Call now, 571-0970.
Hi, and welcome. With me and with our Sunday night family is marriage and family therapist, Dr. Eli Karam. And we're talking about, right now, emerging adulthood. We ask, what kind of challenges are you faced with in terms of your son, grandson? What are the challenges faced today with these kinds of young people? And, one of them is the financial thing. And, Dr. Karam, you were saying that more students, because of the high cost of tuition and the high cost of education, that more and more students are, for example, living at home.
Yeah, let me I'll give you couple stats to show you the change. So this idea, again, emerging adulthood, we're defining 18 to 25. There's a huge rise for this age group, jumping from 32% in 1980, Dr. Stan, to a whopping 43% from this survey a couple years back now live at home. And levels of co-residence are also much higher for men than women, believe it or not, for minorities and whites, and for people with lower education levels, higher percentage of them living at home. So this idea of what is a good use of your money if you're the parent or grandparent, and sometimes the parent or the grandparent floats their child, who funnels that money down to the emerging adult. But the reality is, a bad use would just be giving your son or daughter money without any accountability. So, and that even extends to education. So maybe they are going to school, but you're also supplementing them living costs. And if you're doing that without knowing where that's going, that can sometimes be a bad thing. So the idea of paying for education certainly is a good idea. There's also some research that says, the educational experience is going to take on greater meaning for some emerging adults when they make, a nominal contribution to the college tuition. So they're either taking out loans in their name, or they are working a job, so they're not relying on their parent to do it all. So that's a dialogue you have to have early on. And some parents...
It's tough to see your child struggle. And, it's interesting. My son now is 28, and I'm just a few years older than him. But
you had him very young.
It wasn't that funny, Doctor. So I'm considerably older than him. And I said, "You're still my little boy." Let me explain something. I may be 40 years older than you, but 10 years from now, when you're 38, you're still my little boy. And the Lord willing, I'll still be around. and I'm your papa. So just get used to it, bud.
Yeah.
So I told my daughter the same thing. Let's go to the phones. Hi, Richard. How you doing tonight?
Hi, Dr. Frager. I have a question for Dr. Karam.
All right.
If you were able to talk to Adam Lance's mother, what questions would you ask her?
Well, that's a really good one. He's talking about the tragedy, the shooting back in December, and that gentleman obviously was in this age range. And what would you have said to the mother? Well, that mother, we know really still months later, Richard, we don't know a lot about that case, but that mother was obviously trying to handle her son who had some form of diagnosed mental illness on her own, and trying to contain that. And one of the things about this age group, we do know if you are predisposed to have some genetic predisposition to mental illness, that is when you see a spike in this emerging adulthood. As far as if you're going to have a psychotic break or something, a lot of research says during this age range, that's when that's going to happen. So first of all, to get help and to know that if your child is having trouble socially or adjusting, the worst thing you could do is kind of keep them at home or keep them under wraps. And some parents think if they can just monitor them, if they can be there for them, they can get them over the hump. But the reality is no one person can do it alone. And if you're a parent and you're trying to struggle with your child's illness, if you're not taking care of yourself, i.e. self-care, have a plan for yourself, you're really not modeling something good either. So you got to get people like that help, which means counseling, which means physical and mental checkups, and you can't do it on your own. So we would tell her to do that, and there's no shame in doing that. And also, we don't know a lot about the situation.
Yeah, we don't know all the details about the case.
But that was a divorce situation, too, and a lot of times this is difficult if you think you're a single parent. And we're talking to an audience out there, and many will probably be single parents. So this idea of having help, whether it be another trusted adult or a male figure to kind of help you launch these kids. And also putting accountability on the emerging adult. It's not the parent's job to take care of everything, like we were saying. Yeah, you have to have some minimal contribution, especially if they are physically and mentally able. So this idea that just because you want as Stan said, you want a son to fail, we don't want to err in the other direction and do everything for it. You know, we grow up, Richard, in a society now where everybody, even starting my 4-year-old, he just completed a little soccer camp, and everybody gets a medal, and everybody gets a prize. And that's great, but it also instills this idea that, life is hard, and if you don't experience some developmental, some normal failure along the road, you don't get prepared for these tasks. And decades ago, generations ago, that was kind of built in. And now we don't want to let our children fail. And it comes from a good place for most parents, as I am too. We love our kids. We want them to have more than we did. But sometimes developmentally appropriate failure, as we say, that's not a bad thing.
Well,
that's
it's
how we
so
learn.
painful to watch our own children struggle. I mean, as a parent, you want to spare them as much as you can so they don't struggle.
Well, especially if those struggles remind us of the ones we had when we were that age.
Right. Richard, do you have children?
Yes.
How old are your children?
One is 26 and one's 28.
So do you have grandchildren?
No.
No grandchildren. I'm fishing here. I have a couple tickets for the Corsair Shrine Circus, but I also have, since you've got grown children, how about $25 gift certificate to Veronese Restaurant?
That'd be great.
I thought you might like that. Kristen will get the information from you, and just talk with her, and she's our assistant producer, and she'll... So you hold on. We'll put you on hold.
Thanks, Dr. Karam, too.
And, yeah, he hears you.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. That was a great call, Richard. Appreciate it. 571-0970. I have lots more to give away. 571-0970. Put you right here. We have lots of fun things. Went to Veronese Restaurant last night. It was delicious.
John Veronese, he always comes out and greets all of his
the chef
diners.
comes out,
Yes.
meets, and he just received the Restaurateur of the Year award from the Hospitality Association.
It's a great place.
So,
With Valentine's Day coming up especially, too.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, let me just say one other thing. You're talking about education. So, yeah, education is expensive, and there's another thing, too. If you are one of those parents that really, like we said, you don't want your child to fail, so you've been actively involved in their life, and you've done maybe a little of too much of their homework for them, or you've given them structure, or you've been emailing the teachers and you know when the test is before they do. A lot of family therapists work with teenagers in the context of the family, and one of the things they do, if the parent is over involved, even if it's coming from a good place, they kind of set the boundary so that the teen does more. So extend that out in college. If the emerging adult is not picking their own major or picking it because they think the parent wants them to do it, because instead of them being interested in it, that's doomed for failure. So in college, you have to let the young person kind of start to think on their own and pick something that's going to be a good for them.
Here's true confession time. One is I went a year to law school, got through undergraduate in 3 years, went a year to law school at Washington University. But my parents, they were paying a lot of money for a corporate lawyer, and they thought, well, Stanley can be our corporate lawyer. I didn't want to be in law school, but I was there, and just barely got by the first year. And although it was a great year, you get contracts in criminal law and procedure and property and torts, all the good stuff you get.
Now, Stan, did you know that? Did you know that, or did you need that first year to go through it, or did you know before you didn't want to do that?
I didn't read it. My heart wasn't in it. I always went to all my classes, but I didn't study, so I just barely passed. That I passed was a miracle. The dean calls in and says, "Mr. Frager, we don't think you're serious about law school."
Now, when you told them that after that first year, was that bring you much grief and consternation, or was that a good talk?
The parents, for me it was relief, because I didn't want. He said, "We think you should take a year off, and decide if you're serious about law school." 3 days later, I was packed and on my way to California. And you talk about relief.
No, but when you told your parents, were they supportive of that?
I don't know. I don't, that part is kind of a fog to me. But they were probably disappointed, but who knows. And the B part of that was that my grandmother was always on me about, when am I going to finish? You know how long it takes, Dr. Karam. And
you can never.
Altogether, the undergraduate, your master's, doctorate, and internship, residency kind of thing, I think I was altogether 12 years.
It's
just no end to it. My grandmother kept saying, "When are you going to finish, Stanley? When are you going to finish?" So when I finally got my degree, I was at UCLA, and so I didn't have a lot of contact with my parents or grandparents who lived back in St. Louis. I was out in California. Came back. I went from the airport to my grandmother's house. Not my parents' house in St. Louis. Went to I said, "Baba, I've finished. I'm done. I got my doctorate."
Yeah.
She looked at me and said, "Stanley, so why couldn't you have been a real doctor?"
That's a good story.
There's no winning.
There's no winning.
There's no winning.
Yeah,
so
you never want to ask a doctoral student when they're going to be done. It's kind of like asking a woman, who might be having problems conceiving or whatever. When are you gonna get pregnant? Or when are you gonna have some kids? Because that it's a hard road. And like you said, and kind of tying this theme together, this segment, it's like emerging adults. They got to figure out their own thing, their identity exploration. They have to do it because they're passionate about it, not because society is telling them to do it, because it's attached to an income level, or because mom and dad did it and they want to make mom and dad or their grandparents happy. You do it because you love it. Yeah.
So again, I'm looking, the lines are open. We welcome your calls, 571-0970. 571-0970. You have lots more good stuff to give away. I don't know. It tempts me, Dr. Karam. I think I'm going to go outside the booth here and call in just to win some of the prizes.
You do have a lot of nice things for your callers.
Just for calling in and talking with us on the air. 571-0970. What kind of challenges do you have with your grandchild, in terms of helping them get through college, living at home, and all those kinds of issues? We were just talking about, I know I was at home until I was 22. I had finished my undergraduate and that year of law school, that fatal year of law school. It's expensive.
It is expensive. When we come back from the break, we'll talk about the main features, so you listeners out there can know these 5 main features, every developmental milestone that an emerging adult has to go through.
And that's it. If you know them, you'll know them when they happen. All right, 571-0970. We'll be right back.
After my eyes have seen the years and the slow parade of fears without pride, now I want to understand. Doctor, my eyes.
Hi, welcome.
Tell me what you
All right. Hi, I'm psychologist Stan Frager with marriage and family therapist and professor from the University of Louisville, Dr. Eli Karam. And we're talking about emerging adulthood. What did we say?
18 to 25.
And what is that like? What are the challenges they're faced with? And we were starting to talk about financial issues, Dr. Karam, as well.
Yes, and certainly callers, if you're a parent or grandparent dealing with that, you can call in and ask us a question. I wanted to tell the listeners kind of about these 5 stages that, or maybe you're emerging adult listening to us out there. So these are 5 things that even if you're in the bubble of your own head or your own family, you don't think this is normal. This isn't normal. My child should be out of this stage by now. No, really, these are the things that everybody has to struggle with. So let me tell you about these 5. Well, the first one is identity exploration, the idea that every emerging adult has to have relationships, meet people, meet new things to kind of figure it out. And in that, sometimes is periods of failure, periods of uncertainty. And if you're a parent that wants your son or daughter to have everything figured out in these college years, sometimes that doesn't happen. They are going to change careers, change majors, as Dr. Stan told us in the last segment, and they might try some relationships with some people that you don't approve of if you're the parent. And a lot of times we use relationships and dating as a filter mechanism to figure out who we are and who we're attracted to. So that's all part of identity exploration. Tied into that is instability. If you're 18 through 25 and you have not gone through periods of instability, again, you're probably not doing it right. It's completely normal. So that goes to, again, different majors. If you've always been successful at school, maybe your high school, you aced it, you're even going to college on a scholarship, but now you have picked a very challenging major, or you're trying to now set your schedule when before you had a pretty nice structure, mom and dad gave it to you, or you had your extra school activity or your sport, and now you're in college and you have a lot of time on your hands. And even if you're smart, you don't do a good job of providing yourself much structure. So there is some normal instability.
And there's that temptation. Well, they have, in fact, you can jam up, I'm thinking an undergraduate normal load might be 5 or 6 courses. That'd be 15 hours. And then that's of class time. It means 15 hours means you're taking 15 hours a week.
Yeah.
Most people think about a 40-hour week, Dr. Karam, and it's like, well, what am I supposed to do with the other 25 hours?
That's right, and you can get yourself into a lot of trouble in that other 25 hours, i.e. most college students will experiment, obviously with drugs or alcohol or, again, high-risk behaviors. And that is a potential constraint that kind of stops people from moving on. You develop these bad habits, or you use some crutches to get by that kind of impede your later development. Another telltale sign of this stage of life is self-focus. People think young adults are self-centered. Well, they kind of are. In fact, the biology of this emerging adulthood, the neuroscience, if you will, there's a lot of research out now, Stan, that shows that the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until you hit 25 or 26. So what that does is people that don't have that developed are kind of in the moment, which is a telltale sign of being a teen and even beyond, not able to look at what's coming up, evaluate decisions. And if you make an emotional decision, which adults do too, sometimes it's not the best decision. And being perpetually in the moment leads to self-focus, focusing on yourself, and not thinking about other people. And again, we know that's developmentally and biologically normal in this stage, and hopefully you will grow out of it. And it's a stage of being almost an adult, but not quite. Still relying on your parents, this in-betweenness. And it's tough. And sometimes young adults, emerging adults, beat up on themselves because they think, okay, my parents provided everything for me. Why am I not fully launched yet? And that's because of these societal factors, Stan. It's because of our economy and the fact now that even if you get a degree from a good 4-year institution, you went to Washington University. I went to Northwestern University in Chicago, both great schools. But I know people
that beat you up in basketball.
You cannot guarantee a job just because you have a 4-year degree now. And that, 30 years ago was not the case.
No, it used to be, when you graduated from college, that was a ticket. You were guaranteed a job.
Yes.
Not so anymore.
And that is frustrating for the emerging adult and the parent. So what do? We even see this boomerang generation that launches, and then because they don't have the job or they feel like they have to get a graduate degree, they come back home and live, which can be deflating for the emerging adult and the parents. And then the last kind of sign is this age of possibilities, where people are still big thinkers. They feel that there is unparalleled opportunity, even with these societal constraints that we're talking about. So they still think big. And I think the parent's job is to encourage the big thinking with limits. And sometimes limits mean, what's your plan? And if your dream, your entrepreneurial part, if this does not come to fruition, what will you do? And what can you fall back on? So, as I said, the best way to support your child is know their plan, their emerging adult, and also know.
But they may not have a plan, and it changes. At that age, and again, I'm welcoming calls. The lines are open, 571-0970. Maybe it was your child or grandchild, and what kind of struggles are they having in this age group? And I'm thinking that a lot of times they're going through this heavy transition. They just don't know. In fact, that's why our first couple of years of college are general arts. Because we know that you can change your major 3-4 times. That's par for the course.
Often see marriage and family therapists, see a lot. The young adult, the emerging adult comes in, and they're a big thinker. They have all these big ideas, and the parent who has years of experience says, what you're saying is not practical. I cannot support that. I cannot support you going out and living with the masses or living this life of poverty, because I know you think you're idealistic now and you think that's right, but I don't want that for you. And it causes a lot of hard feelings and a lot of problems, especially when the parent has financed the education, or the parent feels that they are invested to the level in their son or daughter that the son or daughter can't do what they think they need to do. And like I said earlier, that's how we grow. We grow through these developmentally normal failures. And if you're afraid to let your child fail, and that doesn't mean turn your back on them, walk away. It just means some lessons in life, no matter how much a trusted adult tells us, if you're a young adult, you got to figure out for yourself. And what do people do? Often, when a parent comes down hard on their child and says, you must do this, they dig in their heels and do the exact opposite. So you got to look for teachable moments, and you got to let the young adult experience some of this on their own.
And it's so hard to let go as a parent, because it's especially when they're headed down a path. You say, hey, I remember I tried that a long time ago, many years ago, and it got me in trouble. Why are you doing it? You don't want to let them go. But anyway, again, the lines are open, 571-0970. What were the challenges you faced in these years? I want to hear from you. I'm Dr. Stan Frager. Be right back.
9.
Calling Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine, Dr. Frager.
You found Let's Talk with Dr. Stan Frager. Dr. Stan Frager is standing by to give you insight on issues that matter most to you. Call now, 571-0970.
Hi, and welcome. With us is Professor Dr. Eli Karam from the Kent School of Social Work, University of Louisville. And we're talking about things about emerging adulthood and what happens. What are the things as parents we can expect from our 18 to 25-year-olds as they're leaving high school, they're either entering the workforce or they're going into college. And in this day and age, one way or the other, I don't think I go to a single restaurant. I always engage the servers, since my daughter does that back in St. Louis and manages a restaurant. And I always engage them and say, now, what do you do? Are you going to school? 9 out of 10 are going to school. And they all recognize that education's the key that opens all the doors.
And like I was saying earlier, there's kind of clinical wisdom and a little research that supports the fact if you make your child kind of earn part of that, whether it be taking it a loan or working a job, even if it's during the summer or between classes, they value that experience more. That being said, the emerging adult has to balance their life. If you're too much into that, the work, You sometimes lose, if you are in school still, you lose the drive or the time needed to be successful moving towards your degree. And those people that delay and delay finishing their degree and kind of stay stuck in this pattern. You know, also wanted to talk about, because if you're a parent listening to this, you define yourself, a lot of us. I know my wife, I've been with my wife for 13 years now. We have these two. We were married a while before we had children. And we have these two small children. And she is an excellent mother. And there's a lot of excellent parents out there, and they have devoted their life to their children. So when their child hits this age range and kind of launches, even if they have these fits and starts like we've been talking about this hour, sometimes the parents have a hard time doing two things, either focusing back on the primary relationship, which is the marriage, and focusing on themselves. So we got to give these tips, this idea. If I'm a parent out there, and my emerging adult seems to be handling it pretty well, but I'm not. What you have to do is turn it back, especially if you're married. This is segueing to your, see, I've been with you long enough, Stan. I'm promoting your second hour here. You have to learn to redate your mate, in the idea that if you're a great co-parent, it doesn't mean you're a great spouse. And a lot of couples have fallen out of the pattern of focusing on the relationship. So this comes, we see a spike. We see a lot of divorces in the first 7 years, and then a lot of late divorces after the child hits 18 in this emerging adulthood age.
I've had a lot of clients in my practice where I can't tell you how many times I've heard the parents talk about the fact that they're going to wait till their child is out of high school and then off to college. They're out of the house. And one of two things, that's when my wife and I will finally get a chance to know each other. Or B, that's when I'm going to get divorced and move on in my life. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard that.
Either one of them is really, really sad when you think about it, given that the idea is you got to work on your relationship, you got to nurture it. Don't wait till they leave to do it. Be doing it all along.
Let's go to the phone. And hi, Don.
Yeah, Dr. Stan, Dr. Eli, good show. I had a quick question I haven't heard you mention. You know, at work, I hear this term from fellow workers about their child is a lifetime student.
Yeah.
In other words, they've been in school 5 or 6 years and haven't got their first degree yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the lady next door, my neighbor, her daughter, who attends UK, she's supposed to get her bachelor's this year, but it's 6 years. 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they pay for her living down there and all that stuff because we're up here in Louisville. And it seems to me that a lot of these kids take advantage of their parents' so-called lifetime students.
Well, that's a great point you make.
You're exactly right. So back to our points. If they are moving, it's a worthwhile financial investment for the parent if they're making satisfactory progress in their academic career. Now, if they're not, you have to ask why. Either the parent is creating too comfortable a lifestyle, paying for the room and board, especially if I know parents that pay for their children to live in metropolitan areas or places outside of Louisville, and as long as the student is enrolled, that's enough for them. But in families like that where there's no academic progress, you have to define what that is, and the financial support has to be tied, I think, to some forward progression. Are you moving towards your degree? There's another phenomenon that we see where students, they get the degrees and they go back. I'm working with one family now where the emerging adult, I think she's a little older, she's about 27 or 28. She's got like 2 master's degrees. She keeps shifting because she likes being a student. It is comfortable, it is safe, it's somewhat of a buffer from the real world. And she's an excellent student, but she doesn't have as many of these life skills, and she has this anxiety that she can't make it outside, and her parents have the same anxiety, so they're kind of blind to this, and they keep her kind of... they inflate her bottom, if you will, by keep paying her tuition. So I think the parents and the child have to have an honest dialogue. Are you in school because you need to be, or because you're delaying launching and getting into the real world? That's a great question, though. Yeah,
and there's a lot of people who work that use that phrase lifetime student because their kids are still in school and they don't know when they're ever going to get out.
Well, if you go on for graduate work, it can take a long time.
Yeah,
and there's a lot, and that's where that dialogue happens. Okay, we'll support you in some ways of being a student, but in other ways you have to be moving towards having these other responsibilities. So I always tell people, it's like and I have a doctoral degree and a master's degree. And doctoral degrees you don't pay for in the sense that you're working for the school. PhDs, but my master's degree, 13 years later, I'm just paid it off from Northwestern, and I'm still paying for my wife. So it's like, to me, I earned that. I wouldn't
Not
do
only
it, but
do you go to
right.
school forever, but you pay it off
You
forever.
pay it off forever.
Oh, my son has a friend, went to Slippery Rock 4 years, came out owing $100,000. You ready for that? Now, how's this kid ever going to pay that off?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Owes $100,000.
Yeah. Well, it's a good show tonight. I
Well,
appreciate
thank you,
talking
Don.
to
Do you have children, by the way?
Yeah,
grown?
but Dr. Stan, I called in last week, and you gave me 4 vouchers for tickets to the circus.
Oh, yeah, you were going to give them to your grandchildren.
That's right. I went over there yesterday, and those things are worth $18 a piece. So
That's what I've been trying to tell. That was a $72 present.
You win,
five-
and you win,
I've
and
got
you win.
4 more to give away to the next caller who'd like
Well,
it.
that's fine, because it's a $72 gift.
It's a $72 present. I know.
That's why you have such
For
loyal
just talking
listeners.
to Dr. Karam and me. What a deal that is, right?
Yeah.
571-0970 puts you right here. Hey, thank you for being with us, Don.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Don.
571-0970 and puts you right here with Dr. Eli Karam and me.
I wanted to say also about back to before our call, this idea of people focusing on themselves. So yeah, you got to focus on your relationships and also yourself, because depending how old you are when you had your children, you have prime years left when your child gets to this emerging adulthood stage. So maybe it's a career shift, or if you've been so focused on being a homemaker or a parent, that's when people, whether it be a hobby or themselves going back to school, you got to find something for yourself, some passion, something. Because if you don't have anything going on, you have lots of time to focus, over-focus, worry. Times that handicaps the growth, not only for your adult child, but for yourself as well.
Yeah, and it, like you say, you think you're helping them, but you end up hurting them, because what happens is when you're not able to do it, then they resent you for not giving them the money or not helping them.
That's right. It's like it's the
Insane.
worst thing, and we see that dynamic all the time where, sometimes I'll get in, I'll be doing this work, and I'll be working with the parent of marriage and family therapist, and then they bring in and I really like the parent, and then you bring in the emerging adult, and they really are spoiled and demanding, and it's like, wow, it's like you're 22 years old. Your mom does not need to be doing your laundry, and some people, they just take advantage of this, so they don't know. Again, I always call it the great bubble of your own family. When you are in the bubble of your family, Dr. Stan, you lose perspective again on what's normal and really what's going out there. So you don't think it's that weird, because your parent has always done it for you, and you've benefited from it. So I would need where the parent had the boundary there, no matter how you have boundaries or loose. If you form what it do it, that's where this is a family problem. When people think of emerging adulthood, they think of it as an individual stage. Marriage and family therapists think of it as a family stage, and that there's shifts on both the parent and the child.
Yeah, and again, there gets to be an expectation. Hey, you've always taken care of my cell phone bill,
Yeah.
and now you want me to pay for it?
Right. So, because you're being confessional, is there anything with your son? Your son's very successful. He's doing it, but he is in a demanding doctoral program where there's not much time for anything else. Are there things that you still do for your adult
Oh,
children?
absolutely.
Yes.
And he's 28 years old. But
Now, does he
the
think that
Lord
there's a
willing,
problem?
comes
Right.
June,
Yes.
he's done very well. He's been on scholarship the last 4 years, and so we've been very blessed. And hopefully in June he'll be Dr. Frager. It'll be DD squared. Or D squared, doctor.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, he's doing great, and we still help him with pieces of it, but it's nice to see him much more, like you said, you call it the emerging adulthood, and he's standing up there on his own now and taking care of a lot of the major bills that we used to take care of for him. So it's great, but there's things, a lot of parents give their kids credit cards. They can
Yes.
just charge
Right.
gas, fuel.
Worst thing you could do is give a child or emerging adult, if you are financially funding them and there's no plan or accountability, to give them large sums of cash.
Right.
Lots of parents do that.
Big mistake.
No accountability.
All right, Dr. Eli Karam. Coming up now, we're going to talk about Redate Your Mate. 4 steps to falling in love again, all over again. It happens. It'll happen right after we take this little bit of a news update, and then we'll be right back. Keep it here I'll see you in a few minutes.